Welcome to Inside Luxembourg Sport podcast with me, Fraser Carson. I am joined today by recently retired triathlete Bob Haller. Welcome to the show.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Bob, maybe I'll just start with your background. You're a triathlete. How did you get into triathlon?
I had a sporty path. I did lots of primary school, high school sports. I was also already in younger age. I was a basketball, football. My parents sent me to swimming because I would jump in every lake or ocean that I would see without being able to swim. And I did also archery. So it was trying out a lot of different styles. At some point, my parents got divorced and my mom met fanatic of sports, let's say, and he was actually on weekends as a freelancer doing articles for different sports, and he was also doing running, athletics and triathlon, and that's how I got from one sport to the other. I found my love in triathlon, just like that, yeah.
Did you have one that you specialised in? Because normally triathletes will start in probably swimming.
I come from running, so that was definitely my strength. I did even my first duathlon on a mountain bike, so I was pretty far back because I was not having the right training, trying to go up the hill with a mountain bike, actually even getting off the bike because I wouldn't manage to get up the hill. And then swimming was, for years, my worst nightmare.
Did you find that playing multiple sports as a kid helped you reach those levels? Did it help develop a mindset of being competitive?
I remember even talking yesterday to my wife about the upcoming podcast with you. I remember we had a project due in 6th grade, so primary school, and already there I was dreaming about Olympics and going there. I loved sports and stuff. So yeah, I think my path was always that I wanted to go professional and that I wanted to travel and do sports on high level. I didn't know back then that it would be triathlon because I was a running background, so I imagined it more there. But yeah, no, I'm happy with triathlon. I mean, it's a different world. It's a different stage. It's a lot of traveling, and I loved it. It was beautiful.
So talk me through that kind of development when you started to really invest in athletics, first of all, and then think about triathlon, kind of the age and how the process was at that kind of time.
I joined the national team when I was 15, so I was by far the youngest. I had 2-3 years difference to the others who were juniors. We had the elites back then who were Elizabeth May, Dirk Bockel, who went both to Olympics. So obviously they were the idols at the time, and then of course the best in the sport in that time. That I was also fortunate enough to meet later on in my career. So that was also very nice to be idolizing those idols and competing against them. But yeah, the start was very different. I mean, I'm not coming necessarily from a family background that has a lot of sport in it. It was more like my own path. I think over the years we had lots of troubles in the federation at first. So there was a lot of troubles, me with the federation, my parents with the federation, and then that was not happening much, but also the federation. I mean, from the beginning on when I joined as 15-year-old until we have now Cyril, who is one of the 2 national coaches, who is now there the longest. I think we had 4 different national coaches until Cyril came, and that was in a matter of 4, 5, 6 years maximum. So it was a lot of change, and then always needing to trust a new person, and kind of got us a bit derailed, or me derailed, from having one person that I could trust and focus on and train with. And I think that made me a bit the nomad of the sport, because I basically went from one training group to the other, not really training group because I was as a teenager in high school, so I was in Luxembourg, but every training camp, every holiday, I just spent in another group, training abroad and meeting new people. So gave me, of course, a lot of confidence and self-esteem to be able to approach different people, coaches, groups, etc. But yeah, it was a very different mindset than it is today.
Yeah, how's that then for a 15, 16-year-old going into all these different kind of groups, having to not necessarily having friends there and stuff like that? How did you cope?
It's fun. I mean, you get to know new people. I love communication, which is also, I think the reason why it was so easy for me to be a nomad. But at the same time, it's not like you didn't know these people because I had contact either with the coaches already or with the other athletes. So as a young boy in that time, I was really bad in English. First year we had English in high school. I almost failed the class. So from then on, you started traveling, you started talking to international athletes, and you tried your best to communicate, and that obviously had their gains, and the communication was just big key of it. It was just lovely to just have to talk to people and trying to, okay, you're a good athlete. At the time, I was more like me being a talent, because I did hard work, but I did not do the consistent work because I didn't know about it and had no one to really put me into that consistency. I think just traveling with those groups kind of brought me to a certain level, but then afterwards the consistency was the difference between why I never managed to get to the best in the world as an elite. For example, I could beat the same people who had made Olympic medals now. I was beating them on training camps when we were out of juniors or during junior time. So I think that's just the difference. But nowadays they are doing it much better. I think Cyril is now there for 15 years almost. And the way that he has been coaching the new generation of triathlon Luxembourg is just amazing work. No, I think, both. Definitely the professionalism as a whole has changed a lot. I think also in Luxembourg, if I compare a bit, like, of course, we had infrastructures, but it was not the same as using nowadays. I mean, they have opened the doors much more to the athletes. We have way more flexibility of having our own badges and stuff. So I think they really professionalized it over the last, my career was 16 years. Let's say the last 11 years, as long as I was military professional athlete. So I really think that in many disciplines, in many different sports areas that I was a bit more connected to, the one I can reflect most on is triathlon. I think it has really professionalized a lot. We also have the fortunate that we have the same federation team since 2016. So it's, like between me coming first time 2008 to 16, it was like a lot of change all the time, willingly there to really help or to just use it as a means for themselves before the team that we have nowadays. And it's still the same team. So it's really, they put really a lot of effort and a lot of work in it.
I think that consistency is a really important kind of factor within developing sport, developing athletes.
Absolutely. I mean, and I think that in any sports, talent is not always what is necessary. Hard work is, but even in hard work, it's the consistency that is always key.
And you're potentially suggesting, though, if those things had been in place when you were 15, 16, actually you may have been able to progress your career a little bit.
Yeah, I'm not disappointed with my career. I traveled a lot. I've raced the biggest races there is, unless the Olympics, unfortunately. But even then, maybe it wasn't meant for me to be there. I could have regrets on how my career went, but at the same time, I was more like probably born in the wrong age area, whereas I was in a transition phase in sports or in triathlon, where now the new generation has everything established for them and they can focus and train with one coach. And I think I observed that from young age on, that all those guys who became successful in our sport in triathlon, they had from junior and even before junior years, they had the same coach until they were really successful. Even some of them continued, other ones parted their ways. But I think that was the key factor as well for very successful athletes.
Yeah, it's interesting. Well, let's look at some of the things that you had a successful career. Let's face facts.
Yeah.
And what were maybe some of the highlights for you as you come through, if you look back on?
I mean, thank you first, because I appreciate that, often it's a bit like under the radar for me.
I think one of the things we forget about, because having gone to the Olympics doesn't mean you haven't been successful in these kind of things, and people's views around sport and what success is in high performance sports sometimes has changed.
Yeah, I think obviously like Olympics is always a measurement, but I went to 2 European Games. The first one was a very successful campaign. I did basically every year 1 or 2 national championships titles over 16 years, even sometimes in the running categories.
Still got some national records, don't you?
No, national records. No, unfortunately. No. I was not in that talent pool, unfortunately, but I think I was still strong enough to compete in Luxembourgish scene, always up front on podiums. I did lots of European championships, world championships. I mean, basically every single year I was qualified or selected for one of the 2. So I think in the bigger stages, I was able to be there, even if I wasn't always the one who could perform the best, but I was always able to be somewhere. I think I was able to put my foot down and implement some stuff and maybe grow the sport in Luxembourg and maybe also represent Luxembourg well outside of our country. So abroad the country, around the world. And I think I did a fair job for myself.
Yeah, well, what's it like then, your approach to going to those kind of championships, so the Europeans or the World kind of championships, so you're not expected necessarily to win a medal. So what's the mindset? How do you go and approach that? Obviously, you've set goals for yourself to try to achieve, or? I
think those also switched over the years. I mean, as a junior, I was classified as one of the best in the world, as well as an under-23 athlete. So in those moments, I was like, not a threat, but I was like, kind of someone, I could be potential for being close up to good positions, as well as European championships, world championships in those years. So I was classified as one of the best in the world. And then that continued throughout the under 23 categories until the end of 23 categories. And then afterwards, the step to elite was more difficult. And that's where I lost the consistency. The talent was not as important anymore, because all the people who I raced against managed over the under 23 categories to just be much stronger and have the consistency of work all the time. But I think afterwards, my goals on races have switched by reaching a certain goal of points or a certain place, a certain position. Otherwise, at the end, it was also a lot of fighting, because we were 3 guys each time fighting for Olympic qualification. So then it also switched a bit to it's like in Formula 1, you want to beat your teammates. Or at least you're the first Luxembourgish guy and stuff like this. We never had fights in the Luxembourgish team between us. I think those are just switches of results or championships. Then we knew, we're not anymore part of being the best or having a chance to be there, but we tried our best, we trained hard, and we tried to go and see what is the best that we can do on the race.
Yeah, I always talk about this, and we're talking sports psychology here with our LUNEX students, and talking about how do we actually set those kind of performance and process goals. So it's not just the outcome, it's not winning the medal or standing on the podium, but now it's really important that we actually set these kind of targets for ourselves so we can walk away feeling I've achieved something, even though it's not necessarily a medal or something.
Yeah, true. No, it's even for us. I mean, I think as a younger person, the psychology aspect was not so much a thing, where was not that much needed. But I think what you grow older, what the psychology part becomes more important. For example, I was often a person who maybe overthought some stuff and who was visualizing too much. And we had an approach with my national coach, who is Thomas Andreas. Since the 2020 races, Corona races, we had Corona season 2020. We were like no race from March until September. And September suddenly was the World Champs in Hamburg. And so it was like, okay, we couldn't swim for that long. And like we're trying to train our best. I had a hip injury at the same time and then building up to come to that race. And then it was like not anymore. I think from there on was like, how do we approach this race? We started approaching, as we have 3 sports, we started approaching, okay, what's the goal in the swim? What's the goal to the first buoy? How do we, after the first buoy, how are we gonna, when we come out of the water, it's like we took the race apart and we made lots of single goals instead of just saying, I want to reach the top 30 or half of the field. So then, voila, you had to focus a lot on different little goals and also be able to adapt to the situations, because with age, that becomes also more difficult.
So your race tactics changed then a little bit?
Yeah, I think I was not anymore the young guy who just full gas on the bike, who didn't care the outcome afterwards and just ran his heart off. As an elite, you start overthinking a bit more. And then if you think I've done too much hard work, you're already in a negative headspace, you get down on the run and it's like, oh, and then it just changes a bit.
So what is your mindset? Like for me, it's very interesting that drive to get to those top levels in the first place, and then also to stay consistently competing at those kind of things.
I think it's just like, for me, it was maybe more like, you want to do that. You'll be able to achieve, you'll be able to be one of the best. And I think I also wanted to maybe look up to positions like Elizabeth May or Dirk Bockel to be able to go to the Olympics. I mean, going to the Olympics is a title. It has a value that I think even in Luxembourg is not valued enough. Whereas in other countries, while I was traveling around the world, I see that you made it to Olympics. Like, that's wow. And I think here in Luxembourg, it often goes a bit more under the radar. I mean, you hear about the people, oh yeah, I think that name, I heard that one maybe, or here and there, or especially maybe the year of the Olympics, then it's like a bit more focused. But all around, it feels often that maybe Luxembourgish mentality is not so much into sports and we kind of forget people.
It's been a common kind of thing that's coming out in this podcast of how we approach sport in Luxembourg and develop that kind of mindset. I will come back onto that. There's a couple of things I'd like to just talk about and just go through. You've mentioned this kind of concept around traveling and as a triathlete, you're constantly traveling around the world. I suppose we've seen huge growth in triathlon now. There's the T100, the Ironman, the Challenge Series, so we're going a longer distance type of thing. It's gone so professional, so big in the last probably 5 years. How have you kind of seen that change and how it's gone?
It really changed a lot. I mean, even the level since the Corona time, the level men, women has gone up drastically. And every year it's just more incredible to watch races and it just gets more powerful. The younger guys coming up at super young age and they're managing to do amazing stuff already. And then, I mean, first time I was competing at Hayden Wild, for example, I told him to move away on a bike course. Like a year after he was on the podium of the test event in Tokyo. Sports has changed a lot and drastically. And it's actually incredible how certain athletes like Hayden or other people manage to do super short distance up to half Ironmans. It's pretty incredible to see that much change. But if I was nowadays, because I think maybe a mistake that I did throughout my career was doing way too many races. I think we looked it up at the end of my career with the other athletes and with the Luxembourgish friends, Gregor Payet and Stefan Sacher. I must be somewhere in the top 5 of the most athletes in ITU, in World Triathlon, that ever did World Triathlon races. I have 165 races, I think, on my account. And other people like Stefan or Gregor, they have like, I think Stefan is longer around, maybe has 100 races, and Gregor has like less than 80. So it's like other people who are even the same age as me have like half the count of races that I have. So it's like, I think that was maybe a mistake of mine, not being performant, because I was just doing way too many races and trying to be everywhere and trying to run behind points to qualify and stuff. I think that was a big mistake.
That's one of the things you typically see with young athletes. I just want to compete. I want to be out there and do it, and maybe not thinking strategically about development. And that would that be one thing that you kind of recommend now?
And I think it's also what Cyril does with our youngsters. Is that he doesn't take them necessarily to, I mean, even I as a junior was already on every European Cup there was was as a junior. So I was basically traveling already like 9 races a year as a junior. And as an elite, I went up to 20 races a year, which is just way too much. And I was like, probably not even prepared correctly for one of the races. And how they do it today is much better. And I actually came across an Instagram post from Alexia, the Olympic champion from Paris. He's preparing now for April. He's doing the London Marathon. Yeah. So I have followed quite a lot his preparation on the marathon, and I came across like maybe a week or 2 weeks ago. I think the race is now next weekend or week after. And he said, I think I am finally ready to allow myself to be on the start line, something in that area. So he has done so much preparation. He's doing amazing results. I mean, even his trainings is ridiculously well. He did a 40K run or 39K run in 2:10.
That's crazy.
His marathon time is going to be probably around 2:10, something like that, or even less, which is amazing.
That's getting up there with the elites of long distance running.
And he's still swimming next to that marathon preparation. He's still cycling next to the marathon preparation. And he just prepared that long, and he just goes to the race saying, okay, I'm allowed to be here. Whereas my mentality was like, I need to go there because I need to get the points. Otherwise I lose positions. And he just has a complete, I think in the last 2 years before Paris, he basically did like 5-6 races a year, just preparing and doing just Olympic distances, maybe one short distance race a year.
Do you think it's easier like that for an athlete? And I've discussed this with others on the show about if you're selected for the Olympics a long way out, so you know you're going to be there and you've got time to prepare and then you can peak or at that stage, or is it better to get kind of selected closer to the date so you're constantly having to push yourself?
What I've learned from a few athletes during the Olympic cycles, because I have done 3, is that they all prefer to be selected a year before. So they kind of focus to be selected the year before, so they have a better preparation, a longer winter preparation. They not necessarily need to go already February, March, April to the first races that come, and they can go all the way till May, and then they can like really try out their fitness. And then I think that's just a better preparation for Olympics to peak in the right moment, because otherwise there's a chance that you outburn yourself before and then you're too tired after you managed finally to qualify 2 months before or 1 month before. Yeah. And then you're too tired to make the effort to get to the Olympics in the right shape.
And particularly for a sport like triathlon, where you're combining those different events as well. So you can spend more time maybe prepping on the bike leg, getting used to that kind of bike run kind of transition.
Sure. I mean, a 2 months block or a 1 month block can do something, but if you have a 10 months block, I think that person should normally perform better. But then it's the same. It's like, how do you perform on D-Day? That it's also something that you need to be able to learn during your career or before you go to a major game. You need to be able to have the mentality for it, to have the nerves for it, and to be just ready for that day.
How do you use some of that kind of knowledge that you've gained, potentially, as I said, working maybe with younger athletes coming through, or just even sharing and things like this about how to prepare for your first kind of major championship or a big event?
I've noticed often a few first times that we had also at the World Championships, when I was elite juniors along in the 23s, that they were often very nervous. And I tried to just talk to them, be relaxed with them, and just let them know, or try to make them acknowledge that the nerve was good. But at the same time, it's like you can go into overthinking. Like there was even one girl that she couldn't even have breakfast the day of the race. Yeah. It's important to eat something, to have something in the body and stuff. Afterwards, it got better over the years, but it's a good part. But I was never nervous as a kid, before, as a junior, or afterwards. It's just like I wanted to be at the race, and it wouldn't change nothing if I would be nervous or not. So I had like a bit of that Buddhist mentality in that sense, that there's like, is there a problem? Yes, so don't worry. Is there a problem? No, so don't worry. It's a bit like the same for the racing. Like, are you going to mess up the race? Yes. Oh, you cannot change it. Are you going to mess up the race? No. Well done. That's maybe the thing that I did really well, is like I just took one race at the time, how they can, and just went for it.
It's pretty great advice for young athletes kind of coming through. The fact that anything can happen on the day, particularly in a sport like this. You could have your best ever race, but someone on that day might just be slightly better than you.
Exactly. I mean, triathlon is a different competition style. It's like, it's not because you come out last out of the swim that you will not maybe make it to the top 10. Triathlon is not done after the swim, so it's like the day is not over until the finish line is there. There's different disciplines on the bike. Everyone can just look at each other, and then suddenly you find yourself back into the mix. And then if you're a good runner, there you go. And triathlon is just, it is different. It helps to talk about it, to focus, to train that in forehand as well.
As I said, you did have a long career. I think probably the ending was not kind of how you planned or anything like that. Do you want to talk through some of that situation of what happened? And
yeah, sure. I mean, for me, the ending has like 2 ways, because I already felt I was at the ending of my career. So it's like, the last year and a half of my actual career was bad results and injury, and didn't really get it mentally anymore to push myself to go there. I mean, the last 2 years of my career, I was like, if it's below 10 degrees outside, I'm not even going cycling outside.
Okay.
I'm just going to stay inside to cycle, because I was just, I had done it for so many years that the mentality has switched a bit. And I think I lost a bit the edge already to be able to compete at a higher level, but I still didn't want to give up to maybe get to my dream.
It's always a challenge for an athlete if it's a long career. Kind of, how do you give up because you've identified as an athlete? I mean, you're a triathlete. I don't ask you who you are. You're a triathlete, and giving that up is quite a difficult one to do. Is that part of your story as well?
Definitely. I mean, I had obviously my sports psychologist, but at the end, it was a lot of months talking about that, acknowledging that it's the end and accepting it and accepting how it's going to end, etc. And that was pretty difficult. But I think I still had it a bit easier because I had last year in January, I had that injury that threw me off completely of Olympic hopes. And I think that was already a bit, since then I was like, okay, I need to start my transition into my retirement. And I'm just going to try to find one race that I can finish my career off in beauty, which didn't happen, but it somehow happened, but not the way I imagined it. But
yeah, well, is it that because you kind of mentally switched off then, that for people who don't know, you missed 3 tests? So is that part of the process? Or?
Not even, because that happened, actually all of that happened right after my last race. I didn't even know that's going to be my last race. So what happened as well is that I am 1 year banned from international sports or from any sports in the world. Why? I don't have a doping scandal in that sense. Luxembourg was never even concerned that I was going to take doping. So they also confirmed that to me. But yeah, in my case, it's like we have 4 different approaches. So it's like you got caught on doping. That's like the highest of the 4 bad doings. Then it's like you're being called for doping. Let's say they come to an event or they come to your house, but you run away. So that's like the second. It's like very suspicious. Something is sketchy there. And then it's like the third one is, for example, I say I'll be here. I can be tested during 1 hour a day, but then I decided to go to the restaurant. I completely forgot. So you have to always write down 3 months in advance where you are and 1 hour per day where you can be tested. And I managed somehow to get 3 misses because I didn't fill out correctly. So my first one was literally I forgot to fill out that I was in Paris at the test event. I had a lot of stress. I think I even did like a module at university. I had my son all week trying to balance life with sport, with studies, with professional sport. It was like, that was kind of a lot for me. And I think on Friday when I arrived there, I was like, I could breathe, and I completely forgot about filling out that I was in Paris. When they told me, I was like, damn it, my mistake. I'll sign the paper. It was my mistake. I'm not even going to try to counter argument this because obviously it was my mistake. The second one was a bit more complicated, as I had a problem with being able to log into my Adams system. So I sent the anti-doping agency an email mid-September, and when due date for the next 3 months was 1st of October, I said, listen, I have a problem. I cannot even log into my system. I was also many times at their office to try to figure it out together. It took us actually 1 month to deal with it. I ended up doing them an email saying, okay, listen, until 10th of October, I'm going to be in Luxembourg at my home address every day at 6 a.m. You can come and test me. So I was making an email to let them know. Then I have it also in a written proof. That's what they suggested for me to do. Problem was, a week later, I decided with my coaches that on the 3rd of October, we would do a new race. So 2 weeks before the China race, we would do another race in Morocco. But I forgot to send an update email. And then I said, okay, well, I have 1 year to not get a third one. So I made it all the way to July of 2024. And the 1st of July, I knew the whole week before I had to fill out my Adams. And 1st of July at 4 a.m., baby wakes up crying. My wife goes, and I was like, I fill it at 4 a.m. in the morning, something like that. And then 3rd of July, I'm at my internship at COSL, and they call me and they say like, Bob, we have a problem. You didn't fill out your 3 months. I said, hold on. Of course I did. 4 a.m. on the 1st of July, I know it. And then I said, hang on. I check my app. 2 weeks later, 14th of July, we had a race in Ireland. And I made the mistake that I filled out that I was at the race and at the hotel. So I put 2 times in 1 day to be tested. The thing is, then it doesn't upload the system. It doesn't update the system.
Because it thinks you're kind of cheating the system or something like that.
No, it just says there's an error. And because it was 4 a.m., I didn't see that there was an error. So I just logged out after I filled out everything. Oh. And I didn't see that I put 2 times in 1 day testing, and then it didn't update. So I said, that's my mistake. I said it on the phone. And then they sent me the letter. They said, like, listen, we have a problem, isn't this? And I said, don't worry, it's my first one, because I completely forgot about the first 2. So I said, it's my first one. I'll sign the paper and then it's fine. And then they said, it's your 3rd one.
Oh, no.
And then that was it. And then, I didn't even know until August.
Okay.
When there's rumors were going around that someone at the Olympic Games was being banned or was doing something wrong, I read it even in the papers, and I was like, oh, okay. They called me. I was like, hello. And I said, yeah, that's about you, not about anyone else. It's you. I'm like, oh, okay. And then they asked me, I was on holidays, actually, when they called me. Last day of holidays, and then it's like, I'll be there on Monday, and we can discuss it. And then, we try to discuss it and figure out a way of dealing with the situation. And like I said, I acknowledge it's my mistake, but it was bad timing.
Yeah, so it puts kind of sour end to your career, I guess. Is it a little bit like that? Is it kind of, was there any thoughts of going, okay, it's 1 year, I can sit it out, I can maybe do some training, or I can concentrate on another thing and then go back, or that was it. That made your mind up?
Yeah, I mean, I would have wanted to continue maybe until October, November to try to go to one more World Cup, because my last race was the European Cup where I didn't have the right training, I wasn't really there, and I ended up dead last. At least I could run into the finish line with my son in my arms, so that was actually a nice ending for myself. But in that moment, I didn't even realize it was my last race.
Yeah, will you think about recreationally doing some stuff or going to longer distance type of thing?
I think next year I would like to try, maybe even at the end of this year, as my ban goes until the end of August. I would like to maybe try out maybe like half marathon or trail running, or maybe next year like a marathon or half Ironman in Luxembourg. Yeah. So I mean, that would interest me to try out and to see how it goes. If I manage to do the training and maybe also approach the mentality of Alexier and saying like, am I really able to go there and just go and...
It's a different mindset as well. This is one of the things I know from my background of playing professional sport and then not doing that and then going back to try to play at a lower level. Yeah. This kind of thing. It's quite difficult to come to terms with a little bit about what you're doing.
It was a bit rough, especially I took all the modules that I couldn't do in the first 2 years of my university. I redid them. So I also gave my body the time to recover from 16 years of career. I literally didn't do any sports for like 5 months in a row, which was something new for me as well. But the days you had so much to do that the training was impossible anyways to do. And now I'm slowly getting a bit in where I try to do one workout a day to lose a bit, also do the extra weight again, because I'm going to get married in July. So I'm going to try to fit into my suit. But the thing is, now that I retried some training, it's like you compare yourself to the level you had before. And then it's a bit like, do I really swim that slow now? It's not that easy.
How do you find that as well, going from a very structured lifestyle where your training is all very well controlled, what you're doing, you've got other things, obviously your family, you've got studying here at LUNEX, you have multiple kind of things. So you probably had to be quite diligent about what was going on with you, and now not having the same kind of commitments in there. Is that something that was easy to manage, or was it a bit more difficult?
Yeah, I mean, I have ADHD. That's also a thing that was very difficult for me to acknowledge myself or my whole life. So that's something I'm working on right now. And I think talking with my sports psychologist, she said that's pretty much part of why you messed up your 3 missings. It's because of your ADHD, and you need to tackle it and focus and work on it. So that's what I started doing as well now with the neuropsychologist. But at least when I came out of the sport, I had to do so many modules. My structure was like going to the military and working my ass, making all the modules and passing them all, which I successfully did. So I'm happy about that. But when I came, we had 3 weeks holidays over Christmas where we went with my wife's family in Brazil. So I think that was like a bit of a turning point. When I came back in January, I was in a hole because there was nothing anymore. We had a bit of internship, but there was no more training, no more modules to do. So I was in a hole because I didn't have a structure. And for me, ADHD, structure is needed. And I needed to come back out of there and try to find a bit of a structure again. And now I start being better again.
Yeah, good. You mentioned in there to talk about the military, and this is one of the sides that you have had. It's an important part of the Luxembourg high-performance sports structure, really, I think, is kind of the combination of the military with our top-level athletes. How do you find that? What's the experience, or how does that kind of work?
So what is actually very good for us is that it's an additional financial institution that we have. I mean, of course, we do the 4 months instruction base. We actually learn a lot as well. If you're in your mindset in the correct place and you go through the military service of the 4 months instruction base, you can take a lot of the things that you're actually taught there, and the discipline that you're learning and the eager point to, even if you don't want to do something, you're just going to push through. That's something that is actually very valuable to use afterwards in your sporting career. So when I came last year in September, I saw a boxing guy, I forgot his name, and they just finished their instruction base, and I told them, like, listen, I'm here now 11 years in the military service. As an athlete, you're just starting. If you ever have any questions or how it works, feel free to contact me. I say the same to any athlete I meet, or even the triathletes. But I think the military is an amazing concept. It's well thought of. It's been used. I mean, I already knew about it when I was in primary school. It was already used by Schlecks and Kim Kirchen. So I think it's something that just helps the athletes to be able to do their sport, to have an income, and to maybe give them that step to higher performance, to be free to do just their sport.
Yeah, it seems like quite a unique Luxembourgish way to do it. I don't know many other countries that will have some kind of combination of military, but not quite the same kind of ways.
Maybe not the same paying. I think we have good salary. But now we have like military games, world championships. And each time I went for the triathlon world championships, there were actually many other triathletes in different countries who actually came there. So it was a bit surprising as well. So there are actually a lot of countries who have the same thought, more European than around the world, to be fair. But it's an important status that we can have and that we can use of. And I think for everyone who's able to get in there, it's a good start into life.
I'm curious just then, how do you find the difference in the training for the preparation for the military training as opposed to the day-to-day training you're into to competing at high-level triathlon?
Yeah, okay, that's very different. I mean, if you're like Bob Edmus, who was like shot put and you did a lot of push-ups and pull-ups, I think for him it was a benefit. On my side, 4 months of instruction base at the beginning, and it's a real thing. I mean, you cannot deny it. Depending on the sport, it's not very practical. It's not the best thing to do, but in the long run, it's definitely of value. I gained 8 kilos during the instruction base. I came out with a lot more muscle gain than I had before, so I needed to work a few months to get back into my shape, my weight, and get back to the rhythm.
How did your coach feel with you putting on 8 kilos?
Back then it was okay. I mean, it was even still before Thomas's area. So Cyril was already there, but he was just focused on the juniors. So we had a different elite coach. And at the end,
I suppose at least it was muscle rather than you sitting around eating donuts or something.
Yeah, exactly. But it was difficult running suddenly with 10 kilos more going on a run. It was like, it took me about 8 months to get back to making 10 kilometers running in one go. Yeah. So it gave a lot of discipline, but the weight that I just gained was too much at first.
Oh, wow. Yeah, it's an interesting thing.
But even there, I pushed too fast, too hard to get into competition again. I mean, I didn't do 4 months of real training. And then in April, I was already doing my first European Cup. So I was like, again, showing that I did quite some mistakes in my career, which I actually, for me now, it's okay that I did them because it can be used the same as my mistakes of the band that I have for not having put on the things correctly. I have typed in my dates correctly. It's like, you can use it as an example. And I even told my federation and anti-doping, like, if ever they would need me as a person to come with them to talk to other athletes or to institutions or whatever, that I would be always open to follow and to be there and say like, okay, listen guys, even filling out is something very important that you cannot just push away and think it's not that problematic because yes, it can go wrong.
Yeah, it's good. It's good to know. Yeah. Well, you've talked about triathlon in Luxembourg, and probably at the moment, triathlon, track and field, we probably have some really great athletes starting to come through, really competing at the high level. So how do you see some of the developments?
Yeah, I mean, I've known them now for quite a bit. I mean, since they entered high school, so some of them are now finishing high school. So it's been like 8 years that I've known them at least, and that I've been able to compete with them when I was in better shape as well. It's interesting to see the path that they chose to go, and there's now a beautiful group of youngsters, females as males, that are really going for it and they really want to punch through and get professional. And I see a few of them getting even better careers than I did, and it's wonderful. And I'm really like, I've been following. See, at the beginning it was a bit difficult to follow races after my end of career, but now I'm really up close and I contact them regularly to congratulate them and to see their approach. I follow them on social media and even still have contact with Cyril Thomas, talking about their performances, and really looking forward to what those guys and girls are going to do, because they have not only talent, but they are working so hard and they have the consistency, they have the right coaches, they have the right teams behind them, the support system, and it's amazing to watch, honestly.
So how do we go about getting more athletes involved, or triathletes kind of coming through, getting them into that high performance ranks? What's maybe some of the things that we need to start to look at and develop?
Yeah, that's quite a difficult subject, because I think one of the first places we need to start is primary school, high school, just the regular normal sport that needs to level up. Good friend who is now ministry was level in tennis before, Mandy Minella. During the last election, she was also mentioning that it's ridiculous and it's definitely not enough sports for teenagers, even to have 1 or 2 hour sports. I think it's 2 hour sports per week in high school. Yeah. It's not enough. I mean, every kid needs movement, and it just, by giving them so less sports areas, it just takes away motivation or even like interest in moving. And I think it's important for anyone in the world, any body, any type, any culture, to have this. And it's a community that they get together to do sports. And I think for me, it's like in schools and in politics where it needs to have the biggest changes, because the few people who actually manage to get to the Olympics, which afterwards is my research about for my bachelor thesis, is like, how do we only get that few athletes to Olympics when we have all the infrastructure, we have amazing coaches, we have amazing. how do we only qualify so few? I think there's also in the politics where some areas need to be changed and where our culture also needs to change. Luxembourg is a very narrow-minded culture and narrow-minded people. The culture itself needs to change, and we need to adopt more that the sports is not only like the sports needs to become also more high performance direction.
It's a common thread that's come through culture around sport in this country. Sports just seen potentially as just for a small group of people to participate and burn off some energy, as opposed to potentially a lifestyle, and so we can be more physically active all the way through life. But also then how do we push people to see sport as a career? How might we go about, yes, encouraging more sport in school, but what other ways might we be able to go to change some of that mindset about sport and high performance sport in Luxembourg?
I don't have that much of an answer because we have so many events in so many sports, and I think kids are only interested if the parents are already interested. It's like a family thing that more people are getting involved. We did some project here on different modules where we tried to see how we could get more kids involved, and maybe if we get the parents involved, and it's a bit of a cycle like this. But yeah, for high performance, comparing to New Zealand, as I had that in trying to put that together with my research, is like it's also a small nation in that sense, but they managed to be very successful on the international stage. And I think in that sense is what I've read already and what I've seen is that they focus on a few sports. When I have Luxembourg as a comparison, I feel that sometimes we are just focusing on everything, which is also what I saw now in the military, to have a comparison. As a soldier, I went along to the Ministry of Defense. They try to be part somewhere in everything, but they don't focus on one thing they could rather do good. And I think it's the same in the sport. It's like we rather try to help a lot of people and not focus enough. I mean, we should help a lot of people, obviously, even sports that are not Olympics, like the Olympic team does. I think that's very good because we promote those sports in that sense. But I think in that area, it needs more promotion even. On the other hand, we also need to try to bring more budget or more possibility, not only budget. Money always plays a big role in like having facilities, the right people to have on board, the support team and stuff. But I think it's like to focus on a few sports. I mean, if we look at the last few Olympics, which are the sports that are always qualifying for Olympics? We have athletics. We have swimming. Those are the two biggest sports. Cycling. We always have those three sports are always there. Then we have archery. Lately, we had sometimes in shooting. A few triathletes have made it, but that's it. And I was like, and then we have a maximum of Paris was 14 people. In Beijing, 2008, we had 9 or 8 people who qualified. So that's like a bit of like the average. We have like an average of 11 athletes who qualify for Olympics, although we have so many great athletes and we have so many people in our Olympic team. We have so many people who are professional in the military for sports, but we only managed to get that little amount of people to the Olympics. And that's like where I'm trying to figure out like how is it possible, and where it's interesting if we could talk to, like you said, because the ministry, to see like what is their approach on getting to that place.
Yeah, I find that as well. I think from my experience all over the world, it's actually to get things started at least, it is, well, we have a small budget, but let's focus on that specific athlete, specific sports, where we don't need a full team of 15, 20 athletes to get to the top level. We can get there with 4 or 5. And I see triathlon, track and field at the moment here in this country. We've seen some great success, but maybe for me potentially would be, let's try promoting them a lot more. It's getting them out there, so getting their faces known to everybody in the country. So, oh yeah, that's someone who's gone to the Olympics. That's someone who's winning. We've got Patricia van der Werken here at LUNEX who's been winning kind of European and World Championship medals. Let's really start to promote those kind of athletes and develop that kind of mindset around, all right, sport's something that we can be proud of, and as a country you can be proud of.
Exactly.
It's probably happened a little bit within some of the sports. So football have had some good results. The women's basketball team have had some good results over the last year, but they're not necessarily promoted all that much, kind of enhanced through.
That's true, but then Luxembourg is also speciality of our culture is as well being there when the team is successful. But as soon as the team is not successful, of course, it's Luxembourg. Since I went to the Olympic team, it's often been called like we have the small country complex. Yeah, but we're just there for fun, or we're just here to be part of it, and we're not actually looking for results. And we have a lot of athletes that are looking for results and they have the capabilities of getting there. Like Patricia, I mean, she has done so many years of work to get to where she was starting of last year, where she started, boom, having those amazing results. As well as this year already, like you said, the European and World Championship medals. Whereas 4 years ago, no one would have dreamed of it, of having someone in athletics, especially in sprinting, to manage that. So it's there are some individuals that are just out of the norm, that manage to get around the Luxembourgish system. I mean, at least Patricia did it with the Luxembourgish system. So that's also something that is pretty new. Because if we look at the big athletes before, you had Bob Younger, Laurent Carnot, the Schleck brothers, I think was mostly of the time here in Luxembourg. But in his area, there was no leaps, there was even less involvement. So the way he managed to get to the Olympics or all of those people, it's unbelievable. They actually beat the odds of actually making it to a very high stage and to come to a very high level and being able to fight for podiums and even wins.
Yeah. Is it about getting some of the structures around our athletes in place now? Do we need to spend more time developing our coaches, developing, as I said, in schools that we're getting more sport and actually proper investment in sport and understanding the benefits of some of these kind of things, the sports science, sports development practices? Is that something that we really should be focusing on?
I think, yes. I think that's what LEAPS is also how they got created, which is amazing. But I think still with LEAPS and also in COSL is like the infrastructures are amazing that we have in Luxembourg. I think probably from all the places I went throughout my life, Luxembourg has one of the best infrastructures I've ever seen. But I think what is missing in all of these institutions is not enough manpower. LEAPS is literally, of course, I know all of them who work at LEAPS, and some of them also triathletes, some of them are fans of endurance cycling, or Alvin, who is swimming, but who's still now doing with the group like cycling. They are super motivated and they do so much work, but they're understaffed. The problem is there's not enough budget for them to have more members, to have more people, to do more testing on people, to follow the people over Olympic cycles so that those people can come to the races, follow them, and really create that whole structure. I mean, there was for Rio 2016, I just literally contacted an Australian coach who had at that time the best triathlon group in the world. And I said, okay, listen, it's the first time I'm traveling to Australia for World Cup, and 3 weeks later only is the World Cup in New Zealand. Like, where would you suggest for me to stay before and between the two races? And he said, like, listen, come to train with me. And so I was like stoked, because at the end there was the female Olympic champion Gwen Jorgensen who was in that training group, some of the guys who did podiums on the stage and stuff. Yeah, it was a perfect set. I was like starstruck, and it actually was for me one of my best training camps I've ever done. And I finished 52nd on the Australian World Cup. 3 weeks later I finished with a higher level, just because I had different setup, different training approach. And during the whole season, the whole year, I was able to just train with that group. I got my training plans from that coach. I did like 5-6 training camps where I followed them in Europe, in Florida. What I saw is that the difference, I mean, we had more Australians in there, but also Canadians. But the difference between those countries, like they had a physio, a doctor, they had nutritionists all the time, the whole year before the Olympics. There's like the budgets were like out of proportions completely compared to what we could afford in Luxembourg, probably, although we are a much richer country. So
is it something about getting people out there to experience these different countries and how they're doing it and be able to bring that back to Luxembourg as well?
That would be a possibility, but I think if I compare, like, for example, if I check Australia or New Zealand, I think they have also everything they do is like written down in like projects and stuff, and they publish it all. I think it's very easy as well for us here in LUNEX to, when we have work to do, and I think often they take Australia, for example, as a comparison, or even we took New Zealand many times as a comparison, because they really structure their whole work and how they do to the next 5-year plan, and how do we do for the next Olympics, or how do we get more? They publish everything. So it's really easy to follow up on how they do it. But I think it's a different approach, a different view of things. And I know that the people, as I also did my internship at COSL, they are doing so much work. And the thing is, just for me, they're understaffed.
Yeah.
They're understaffed because they have so much knowledge in their group. Just an amazing, and it's all Luxembourgish, it's not like, because Luxembourg is also known as also having lots of people coming from outside, which is also good, and it's beneficial for us as a country because we don't have that big history in sport. But then it's like, it's impressive that we can develop all of that, but we need just more people.
Yeah.
I think what I experienced, and what also when talking to them, is like what came out is often that the infrastructure is there, but it's not enough stuff.
Yeah. Okay, it's interesting. And this is some of your research that you're looking at as part of the CNS studies, or?
Maybe. I thought about it now, but yeah, maybe it could be part of my conclusion. We'll see what the whole result in the interviews will be at.
Look, we're probably going to have to put a stop here. I'll probably keep on talking to you for hours. Yeah. Really interesting, some of the discussions that we have. You're given an empty checkbook to kind of say how we're going to invest in sport and high performance sport in Luxembourg. What's your approach?
Yeah, I would go high numbers, just so that I think it's also important there are certain sports and athletes who have to travel a lot, who have a lot more material, who need a bit more stuff. I would give them way higher budgets. I think I would give everyone a bit higher budgets, so that the budget, as a rich country as we are, should not be like the necessary problem. But I would also use a lot of that budget to just have more people working, for example, in LEAPS, that can really be around these Olympic sports, that maybe are together with COSL. Maybe if we do it like New Zealand, to focus on a few sports that have the most
Yeah.
potential of being successful, to promote more in those sports and having more people around those athletes, around those teams, around the coaches to follow them on the whole Olympic cycle, to prepare them and to be there and not just do like once every 3 months a test and see how it goes, or what have we changed in 4 months or 5 months.
Yeah, so really having that longer term view rather than just a short term, how are we going to do it? And not just the next Olympics, but in 2, 3, 4 Olympic kind of cycles, that kind of thing as well. So.
I think that's what is always important in sports. I think one of my first researches I did were at LUNEX, one of my first modules that we had to write a dissertation for. I came across an English paper that said that, or from an English coach, that said that for the first Olympic cycle, you need to prepare an athlete. It's 2 cycles. Yeah. So you need 8 years to prepare an athlete to be able to compete at their first Olympics successfully. So that's like how Great Britain saw how to qualify the athletes. It's 8 years to get the athletes ready to be able to compete at the highest level and be successful.
Thank you very much for coming on. Thank you very much for being so open and sharing all your views. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you very much for having me.